So we recently visited Bee Creek Farm, and we were able to record our experience there at this amazing regenerative farm. We're absolutely blown away by the farm, the procedures, how much they care for their animals, and how pure everything is and what they're doing. So we can't wait for you guys to see it.
There are basically 3 families, and we were all living some sort of a normal city life in different places in the country. Each of us had, professional jobs, and we in 2020 so much changed, and our thinking on a lot of things changed. And one of them was like our understanding of the food system and how fragile it is, and how important it is to have access to real healthy food and also just fresh air. And there's a lot of confusion out there about, or not confusion, but there's a lot of interest in what's the difference between regenerative farming and, say, just organic farming. Because organic is something people are sort of familiar with. It's been around for a long time. Regenerative farming really is focused on using animals to build the land, whereas organic is just trying to, say, grow vegetables or whatever you're trying to do without chemicals. Regenerative farming is really a more specific way to do that, which is saying, let's use livestock, usually ruminant animals, cows. In our case, it's cows. You could use, some folks use buffalo. But the idea is that soil is built through perennial plants. And here it's through perennial grasses, but it could also be through trees. And so the roots of those grasses or those trees or those whatever crops they are, and the key is that they're perennial. They last longer than a year. And the way that those plants communicate with the soil is through the animals. So actually what for example, say there's stories of 200, 300 years ago, just in the 1800s, there were sightings of herds of buffalo on the plains in the U.S. that were in the numbers of millions, like a herd of 1 million buffalo. I don't know how they counted that, but it was a lot. Maybe it wasn't 1 million, but it was a lot. And despite that, the grass was as tall as your head. And so this idea, I think that's what regenerative farming is so mind-blowing, is that we have been conditioned over the last 100 years to believe that the way that you preserve land is you keep animals off the land. Whereas regenerative farming says, no, actually in nature, the only way that land thrives is with animals. You need to use animals, but you need to use them the right way. And what makes our model, which we're not the only ones, we are followers. I mean, we go to YouTube University. We've read up a lot. We keep up on podcasts, and we find out what cool things other farmers are doing. But and so most regenerative farmers do some version of this. But the idea is that we don't just turn the cows out on a huge plot of land and let them roam around as they please, because in nature that would never happen. Those cows are defenseless herbivores. So they would be, if they did that in the open, predators would pick them apart. And so the way that cows naturally graze is in a herd. They graze in a tight herd, whether it's cows or buffalo. They're going to move around from place to place. They're going to spend very little time grazing a plot of land, maybe only an acre for 100 cows. And so the way that we mimic that, the way that regenerative farming mimics that today, and we do that out here, is by using movable electric fence. So we have a single strand of poly wire, and it comes on a reel. We got a reel of it right here. And yeah, you can basically create your own, every day, sometimes multiple times a day, we partition our fields such that the cows will graze on only one part of the field, and that way we're mimicking that natural tendency of the cow, and we're basically subjecting the field, any part of the field, any blade of grass is being subjected to very intense grazing and then a very long period of rest. All the propaganda about cows destroying the world when you come out to a real farm and you see what cows are doing to the environment, you realize that that's what it is. It's propaganda, because you can't create, you can't enrich the soil without cows. I mean, you can do it with you either can do it with chemicals or with cows, and we choose to do it this way. Yeah, the whole methane gas conversation. They, the cows, like cows are farting and boiling the oceans or whatever. What's being missed in that is, number one, it depends on what the cows are eating. Like, if the cows are in a feedlot eating things that their rumen isn't designed, that their body isn't designed to eat, there are going to be some byproducts. Obviously, that's not a good thing. So it's not surprising that would be damaging to the cow, damaging to the person who eats the beef, and probably damaging for the environment, damaging for the economy, because that's probably an activity that's being subsidized. And then the other thing that's being missed is that in a proper grazing operation in a regenerative farm, that cow, by grazing the land, by eating grass and letting that land rest, carbon is being sequestered into the land, because when that grass gets eaten, it sends a signal to the soil and to the roots. Basically, there's a hormonal signal that grows the roots of the plant, and those roots are made of carbon. So carbon's getting put into the ground. On the other hand, when you go and farm, let's say conventional farming, if you go and farm soybeans and you're not rotating your crops, you're just doing what's called a monoculture. You're farming soybeans or you're farming corn to make ethanol, for example. You are stripping the soil, you are depleting the soil of its organic matter, of its carbon, and that carbon actually ends up getting released. So some might suggest that it's industrial agriculture that's bad for the environment, rather than letting animals graze the land the way they have for the last hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah. If we can get a good patty. Maybe not the most appetizing thing if you're trying to sell food, but sometimes it depends on how long it's been sitting. What you want to see are beetles. Yeah, so you can see we've got all these little holes. These are dung beetles, and we can even open this up. And we should see some activity. This is a pretty new one, but we like looking at cow patties. But we get to see basically these dung beetles come and decompose, help speed the decomposition. We used pigs that are heritage breeds, so Gloucester Old Spots, Red Wattle, and Large English Black. These are all breeds of pig that have been around for a long time. They kind of fell out of fashion when the whole USDA pork, the whole US pork industry basically went to very lean, bland pigs that can survive in confinement housing. A lot of these heritage breeds, kind of everything went out of fashion in favor of the one kind of plain vanilla pig. But anyway, these breeds are awesome. They thrive on pasture. They thrive in forest. We usually run them in forest, and we rotate them as well. So we don't rotate them every day because pigs are hard to herd. We rotate them about every 2 weeks. So they're going to spend 2 weeks on a given piece of forest, and then they move on to another piece, and that land that they were using gets to rest usually for about 70 days. Pigs, unlike cows, pigs are a monogastric animal. So cows have a rumen. They can eat grass and turn it into muscle and fat. Pigs don't have that. Really, whatever pigs eat ends up in the pig's flesh. So what the pig eats is very, very important. That is one reason why you get so much variability in the taste and quality of pork. You can feed them, they'll eat anything. You can feed them garbage, but the pork might taste like garbage. What we're gonna do today is, we have an orchard, we have an apple orchard over here, and it's all been picked, it's all been harvested. We had an early harvest. It was very hot and dry this summer. So we made a lot of delicious apple cider and had some good apples. But there are a ton of apples on the ground. There are probably a lot of bug larvae on the ground that we don't really want overwintering, or at least we want to keep those populations in check. And it's all delicious stuff to feed pigs. So what we're going to try to do, and like I said earlier, herding pigs is tough, but we're setting up here to try and herd some pigs from their current forest to move them along this road to go into our orchard. And they're going to hang out in the orchard for a couple of weeks. Some people do free-range chickens. One issue with free-range chickens is predators. The hawks could get them. And then the other issue is that there's no way to control the grazing of your land. So if we free-range these chickens, then you're not able to rest the land. Yeah, exactly. You would need to, I mean, how do you make sure that if they're all just, same with the cows, if they're all just out grazing whatever they want to, then none of the land actually gets to rest. What you want is the chicken might, litter on the ground and eat some of the grass or eat some of the roots or whatever, scratch it, destroy it, but then leave it alone for 60 days. If you're free ranging the chickens, there's no guarantee of that. The chicken will come right back. As soon as that grass tries to start recovering, they'll come right back after it. So this way we're sort of making sure that the grass has time to recover, and that's why you see, for the most part, a very nice, lush, grassy field, even though we're in a drought right now.
Well, I never thought I would be doing this. I graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in electrical engineering and mathematics, and that was in early 2010s when all the social media and the iPhone and everything were kicking off. So I got a job offer to move out to San Francisco. Sought my fortune. So moved out there in 2013 and did a couple startups, none of which anybody's ever heard of, and that's normal. Then I did some freelance contracting work with computers, traveled around the world, lived in different places. Came back to SF, worked at Google, worked at Pinterest, worked on iPhone for them. Then 2019, I decided, how about having a normal life? Let's go back to the Southeast, which is, my family's from North Carolina. So I drove across the country and moved to have a normal life. And while I was driving across the country, they announced the COVID lockdowns in where I was moving to. So I moved there and never went to the office and just lived in North Carolina. And as COVID drew on, my brother gave me a call one day. He said, "Hey, do you want to just make a big change? You want to start a farm and do something different, do something that makes more sense, especially with the world getting as crazy as it is?" I said, "Yeah, I do. Let's do it." Well, we sell grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative beef. We sell pasture-raised pork, no shots, no sprays, no GMO, no soy. We sell pasture-raised chickens as well. We sell organic, totally natural, no chemicals, apples. That's about the products that we sell right now. You can find us at a couple farmers markets around the Chattanooga area. We do the St. Albans Market in Hickson on Saturdays. We do the main big Chattanooga Market downtown on Sundays. We do a market in Ooltewah on Thursdays. And you can find us on Instagram at BCreekTN. You can find us at bcreektn.com. And yeah, we hope to see you.